What kind of worthless junk did you give me? That was what my father said before he slapped me in front of 30 guests holding champagne glasses like they had just paid admission to watch my humiliation. His name was Gerald Talbot. And that night was his 55th birthday. The house was full of neighbors, church friends, co-workers from his insurance office, and people who knew exactly how to smile while pretending not to see what was happening right in front of them. You know the type. Good shoes, good manners, and a backbone that disappears the second things get uncomfortable. I was standing on the patio with my hands still smelling like lemon slices and dish soap. I had been awake since 5 that morning getting that party ready. Not helping. Getting it ready. There is a difference. Helping means someone thanks you. Getting it ready means everyone acts like the chairs arranged themselves and the serving platters floated out of the cabinet by magic. By sunrise, I had already swept the patio, wiped down the outdoor table, washed every glass by hand because Donna said the dishwasher left spots, and ironed a tablecloth so long it looked like I was preparing for a state dinner instead of Gerald eating barbecue ribs with men who talked too loud. I sliced lemons for water pitchers, arranged folding chairs, polished the dining table, carried boxes from the garage, and cleaned the downstairs bathroom twice because Megan said the hand towels looked sad. Megan was Gerald's real daughter. I say real because that was how the house treated it, even though nobody said it out loud unless they were angry, drunk, or thought I was too far away to hear. Megan was 23, 2 years older than me, and still lived upstairs in a bedroom with a queen bed, a flat-screen television, and a vanity mirror with lights around it, like she was getting ready for a movie premiere every time she brushed her hair. My room was not upstairs. It was not really a room either. Unless you believe a storage closet beside a water heater counts as a bedroom. No window. No closet. Just a twin mattress Gerald had dragged home from somebody's curb when I was 9. A wool blanket that always smelled damp no matter how many times I washed it. And one narrow shelf for my clothes. If that sounds dramatic, I wish it were. Drama at least gives you music in the background. I had pipes banging in the wall and a furnace that coughed all winter. Donna called it modest but practical. Donna had a gift for making cruelty sound like a home decorating choice. I had been adopted when I was little. Or that was what I had been told. Gerald and Donna said my biological parents did not want me. They said they took me in out of Christian kindness. They said I should be grateful. That word followed me around the house like a fly at a picnic. Grateful for the mattress. Grateful for the leftovers. Grateful for the chores. Grateful for the fact that they let me stay under their roof. As Gerald liked to remind me. Even though I worked harder in that house than most people work in a paid job with benefits and a lunch break, for 3 months before his birthday, I had saved tip money from my job at Rosie's off Route 1. I washed pans there in the evenings. The kind of work that leaves your hands cracked and your back complaining like an old pickup truck. I made $11 an hour. And every dollar I kept had to be hidden because Gerald liked to check my bank account. He called it guidance. I called it being watched like a raccoon near a trash can. I saved $84 and bought him a real leather wallet from a department store downtown. Brown leather. Simple. Nice stitching. Not fancy, but decent. The kind of thing a man could actually use if he was not too busy measuring love by the price tag. I wrapped it in brown craft paper because I could not afford a gift bag. On the front, I wrote, "Happy birthday, Dad." Then I stared at that word for a long time. Dad. It looked strange in my handwriting, like I was trying on a coat that never fit. By early evening, the patio lights were glowing. The cake was on the table. The wine had been opened. And Gerald was walking around like the mayor of his own little kingdom. He wore a powder blue Ralph Lauren polo shirt, khaki pants pressed so sharp they could probably cut a sandwich, and enough cologne to make the mosquitoes file a complaint. Donna stood beside him in a linen dress she had made me steam twice because the first time, according to her, I missed the spirit of the fabric. I still do not know what that means. The dress looked fine. Donna just enjoyed finding problems the way other women collect coupons. Megan arrived late. Naturally. She came through the back door in new heels, new highlights, and a new dress that I was pretty sure cost more than my entire closet. She carried Gerald's birthday gift in a glossy bag with tissue paper sticking out of the top. Inside was an Apple Watch. Stainless steel. The kind that cost around $700. She had bought it with the emergency credit card Gerald gave her. Apparently, emergencies included needing applause. Gerald opened her gift first. Of course, he beamed like she had handed him the keys to the White House. He kissed her forehead and said, "This is my girl. She always knows what her old man likes." I was standing 3 feet away holding a tray of deviled eggs. He did not look at me. That was normal. When guests were around, I became part of the furniture. Useful, silent, and expected to stay where I was put. I refilled glasses, cleared plates, wiped spills, took coats, brought napkins, and smiled when Donna introduced me as our adopted daughter. Allison. Allison. That was the name they gave me. I did not know then that it was not my real name. I only knew it never felt right when people said it. It landed on me like a shirt, with the tag still scratching the back of my neck. At one point, a woman from Gerald's office looked at me and said, "Shouldn't Allison sit and eat with us?" Donna smiled, that soft little smile of hers. The one she used when she wanted to sound kind while shutting a door in someone's face. "Oh, she likes to help," Donna said. "It's her way of showing gratitude. You know how it is with adopted ones. Adopted ones, not children, not daughters. Honest." I kept carrying the tray because what else was I supposed to do? Throw a deviled egg at her pearls? Tempting. But I had already cleaned the patio once. Then came the gift opening. Gerald sat at the head of the outdoor table like a king accepting tribute. Guests gathered around him. Champagne glasses caught the string lights. Megan perched on the arm of his chair filming with her phone. Donna stood behind him with one hand on his shoulder, looking proud, polished, and completely useless. I stepped forward with my brown paper package. My stomach was tight, but some foolish part of me still hoped he might like it. Or at least nod. Maybe say thank you. Maybe, for 1 minute, treat me like I had done something right. Gerald took the package and weighed it in his hand. He tore the paper slowly. He pulled out the wallet, opened it, closed it, turned it over, and held it up between two fingers like he had found something unpleasant in the sink. Then he said it. "What kind of worthless junk did you give me?" The whole patio went quiet. Not regular, quiet. Not polite, quiet. The kind of quiet where everyone hears the refrigerator humming from inside the kitchen and nobody wants to be the first decent person in the room. I felt my face burn. "I saved up for it," I said. My voice sounded small. "And I hated that. For 3 months." 3 months? Gerald stood so fast his chair scraped the stone. 3 months and this is all you got me? Megan's phone stayed pointed at us. Donna looked down at her plate. Gerald stepped closer. His breath smelled like wine and steak sauce. "Even the dog gets better treats than this." A few people looked away. A few stared at their shoes. One man suddenly became deeply interested in his napkin. Amazing how fabric becomes fascinating when somebody needs courage. I bent down to pick up the wrapping paper. Mostly because I did not know what else to do with my hands. That was when he hit me. Open palm. Left cheek. Hard enough to turn my head. The sound cracked across the patio. A champagne glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the stone. For a second, nobody moved. My cheek stung. My eyes watered. But I would not cry. Not there. Not for him. Not while Megan was filming, like my pain was content. The wallet had fallen near my shoe. Gerald pointed at me and said, "Maybe now you'll learn respect." And that was the moment something inside me went very still. Not calm. Not exactly. More like a door closing. For years, I had swallowed insults. Chores. Hunger. Cold rooms. Hand-me-down clothes. And that constant word. Gratitude. I had told myself to survive until I could figure out how to leave. But standing there in front of those guests, with my cheek burning and my cheap little gift on the ground, I finally understood something. He was not angry because of the wallet. He was angry because I had started saying no. 2 weeks earlier, Gerald had tried to make me sign a paper saying I was not ready to live on my own. He said it was for my protection. But even I could read enough legal language to know it gave him control over money connected to me. Money I had never seen. Money he had never explained. I had not signed it. That slap was not about disrespect. It was punishment. A woman stood from the far side of the patio. Ruth Kessler. Our next-door neighbor. 70 years old. Barely 5 feet tall. Wearing a navy cardigan and the kind of sensible shoes that had probably seen more honesty than everyone else at that table combined. "Gerald," she said. That was uncalled for. Gerald turned on her. "Stay out of my family business." Ruth sat back down. But she did not look away from me. I never forgot that. I looked around the patio one last time. Donna still would not meet my eyes. Megan lowered her phone just enough to check the video. Because heaven forbid she missed the angle. Gerald was breathing hard. Waiting for me to apologize. Waiting for me to bend. I did not. I walked into the house. Nobody stopped me. In the hallway, I heard the party slowly start again behind me. A forced laugh. A fork against a plate. Someone saying, "Well, anyway." Like a young woman had not just been slapped in public for buying a birthday gift with honest money. I went downstairs to the storage closet and pulled my old navy backpack from the nail on the wall. The zipper was frayed. But it still worked if I was gentle. I packed 2 shirts. 1 pair of jeans. A toothbrush. My phone charger. And the envelope I had found months earlier in a box Gerald tried to throw away. I did not fully understand what was inside it yet. But something told me to keep it. Then I reached under my mattress and pulled out the $340 I had hidden in small bills. That was everything I owned. $340. A backpack. And a bruise spreading across my cheek. I stood in that little room without a window and looked at the mattress. The blanket. The water heater. The bare bulb overhead. I had spent years calling that place my room because I did not know I was allowed to call it what it was, a closet. I walked upstairs. Crossed the living room. And past the kitchen where Donna stood by the window. She watched me through the glass as I stepped onto the front lawn. For 1 second, I thought she might open the door. She did not. She reached for the curtain and pulled it shut. That told me everything I needed to know. I walked away from that house with my cheek burning. My hands shaking. And no plan at all. I did not know where I would sleep. I did not know who I could trust. I did not even know my own real name. But I knew one thing with the kind of certainty life only gives you after it has taken enough. Gerald Talbot would never slap me again. The cold air hit my face before I even reached the sidewalk. And for the first time in years, nobody was standing behind me telling me to turn around. I kept walking, not because I was brave. Let's not dress it up too pretty. I was scared down to my socks. My cheek was throbbing. My backpack strap was digging into my shoulder. And I had exactly $340 to my name. Most of it in 1s and 5s. That is not freedom money. That is, maybe, I can survive until Tuesday money, but every step away from that house felt cleaner than the one before it. The funny thing about leaving a place where you were treated badly is that your mind does not leave right away. Your feet do. Sure. Your body moves down the street. But your thoughts keep turning back. Counting chores. Listening for footsteps. Expecting someone to call your name like you forgot to finish the laundry. Even that night. Walking in the dark. I kept thinking about the kitchen sink. Did I leave the serving platters soaking? Did I turn off the oven? Did I wipe down the counter after slicing the lemons? That is what 18 years in the Talbot house did to me. I could be homeless on a sidewalk in Virginia, with a bruise on my face. And some trained little part of my brain still worried Donna might complain about water spots. I had not always known my life was strange. When you grow up inside something, you think it is normal because normal is whatever you are handed first. If a child is told every day that being tired is gratitude, she starts believing exhaustion is just good manners. I started doing chores when I was small. At first, Donna called it helping. She would hand me a dish towel and say, "Allison, be useful." Not kind. Not sweet. Useful. By the time I was 8, I could fold towels, dust baseboards, unload groceries, sweep the porch, scrub the bathroom sink, and make Gerald's coffee exactly how he liked it. 2 sugars, a splash of half and half. No spoon left on the counter because apparently that was a sign of moral failure. At 10, I was cooking simple meals, scrambled eggs, grilled cheese, soup from a can, then pasta, meatloaf, casseroles, chicken breasts baked, until they were so dry even the dog looked insulted. Gerald said cooking taught responsibility. Donna said girls should know how to run a home. Megan said nothing because Megan did not have to know how to run anything except her mouth and Gerald's credit card. By 12, I was doing laundry for the whole house. Gerald's shirts had to be hung facing the same direction. Donna's blouses had to be washed on delicate. Megan's jeans could not go in the dryer because she said they lost their personality. I did not know denim had a personality. But in that house, my opinion was not exactly in high demand. If I missed something, Gerald noticed. A sock left in the dryer, a streak on the mirror, a pan not scrubbed hard enough. He had a way of finding the smallest mistake and holding it up like proof that I was defective. He never yelled first. That would have been too honest. He started with disappointment. A sigh, a shake of the head, a look across the room. Then came the lecture. After all we've done for you? That was his favorite sentence. He used it like duct tape. Slap it over any question, any complaint, any sign that I might have a backbone growing somewhere. When I was 13, I asked why Megan got allowance and I did not. Gerald looked at me like I had asked why the moon did not pay rent. Megan is our daughter, he said. You are being provided for. Provided for. That meant I got Megan's old clothes after she was done with them. If they fit, fine. If they did not, Donna said I should be grateful they were clean. I had sneakers with the soles peeling at the edges and winter coats that smelled like perfume and closet dust. Megan got shopping trips at the mall. I got a plastic bag left outside my closet door. My closet. That is what I called it because calling it a bedroom would have been too generous. And calling it a closet would have made me cry. It was downstairs, tucked beside the water heater, with walls painted a tired beige color that looked like nobody had cared about it since the first Bush administration. There was no window, so I never woke up to sunlight. I woke up to pipes knocking, the furnace clicking, and Donna calling my name from the top of the stairs. Allison, are you up? Not good morning, not did you sleep well, just are you up? Because there was work waiting. The mattress was thin and lumpy. Gerald said he found it for free, and that proved he was practical. It had a dip in the middle that held my body like a dent. The blanket scratched my arms and smelled damp no matter how many times I washed it. In the winter, the floor got cold enough that I kept my shoes near the bed so I would not have to step barefoot onto it. I used to lie there at night and listen to the house above me. Megan laughing on the phone. Donna watching television. Gerald opening the refrigerator. Normal family sounds. Just not for me. Dinner was the strangest part. I cooked it, served it, cleaned it up, and sometimes did not sit down until everyone else was finished. When guests came over, I was expected to stay busy, refill tea, clear plates, smile when spoken to, never take up space. If someone asked why I was not eating with the family, Donna always had an answer ready. She likes to help. She's shy. She's had a long day. Or my personal favorite. We're teaching her responsibility. Amazing how many grown adults hear a sentence like that and decide it is none of their business. School was not much better. But at least school had windows. I liked the library because nobody in there asked me to wipe anything. I could sit in a chair, open a book, and be quiet without being accused of having an attitude. But even school came with rules. No clubs, because Gerald said transportation was inconvenient. No sleepovers, because Donna said other families would not understand my situation. No field trips unless they were free. No driver's education, because Gerald said I had nowhere important to go. When I asked about getting a license at 17, he laughed. What for? You don't have a car. That was Gerald's trick. He would block the first step, then mock you for not reaching the second. I did not have my birth certificate. I did not have my social security card. I did not have a state identification card. Whenever I asked for them, Gerald said he kept important documents safe. Safe from what? I never knew. Fire? Theft? Me becoming a person? At 16. Megan got a Toyota Camry with a bow on the hood. Gerald posted pictures online and wrote, "Proud dad moment." At 16. I got permission to work part-time at Rosie's. But only because Gerald said I needed to learn the value of $1. Of course. He also wanted access to my bank account. So apparently the value of $1 was that he should know where mine went. Rosie's was a small restaurant off Route 1. Nothing fancy. Vinyl booths. Coffee that tasted like it had been arguing with the pot since dawn. And regulars who knew exactly which table they wanted before they walked in. I washed dishes, carried trash, wiped counters, and sometimes helped with prep when the cook trusted me not to ruin anything. I loved it. That sounds sad. I know. But at Rosie's, if I worked, I got paid. If I did something right, someone said thank you. If I burned my hand on a pan, nobody told me I was being dramatic. Rosie herself once handed me a chicken sandwich at the end of a shift and said, "You look like a stiff breeze could knock you into next week. Eat." I almost cried over that sandwich. Not because it was special. It was just chicken, lettuce, tomato, and too much mayonnaise. But nobody had made it into a lesson. Nobody told me to be grateful. Nobody reminded me what I owed them. They just fed me. That is when I started saving cash. $1 here, $5 there. Tip money folded into socks, tucked into old books, hidden under the mattress in my closet. I knew Gerald watched my bank account. So I learned to become boring on paper. Small deposits, small withdrawals. Nothing that would make him ask questions. You learn things when you live with controlling people. You learn which floorboards creak. You learn how to close a cabinet without making sound. You learn the difference between a quiet house and a dangerous quiet house. You learn to read footsteps. Donna's were light and quick. Megan's were lazy unless she was mad. Gerald's were heavy, slow, and certain. Like the whole house belonged to his shoes. And maybe that was the worst part. Not the chores. Not the closet. Not even the insults. It was the way they trained me to believe I should be thankful for less than basic kindness. If Gerald gave me leftovers, that was generosity. If Donna bought me drugstore shampoo, that was love. If Megan handed me a dress she did not want anymore, that was sisterhood. And if I ever looked unhappy, they acted wounded. Like my pain was poor manners. That is why the slap at the birthday party did not come out of nowhere. It had been coming for years. Every time Gerald called me a burden. Every time Donna smiled and looked away. Every time Megan enjoyed the benefits of my labor and pretended she had earned them. The slap was just the first honest thing that family ever gave me. It said what the house had been saying quietly, all along. Know your place. But standing on that dark road with my backpack on my shoulder, I finally understood something that should not have taken me 21 years to learn. A place that small was never meant for me, and I was done fitting myself into it. The farther I walked from that house, the clearer it became that the Talbots had not just built a home, they had built a stage. And Gerald Talbot was the star of the show. If you met him on a Sunday morning, you would have thought he was the kind of man every neighborhood needed. He wore pressed shirts, shook hands with both hands, remembered people's names, and always knew when to lower his voice, so he sounded sincere. He served on the board of deacons at First Baptist. He coached Little League for a few seasons. Even though Megan never played, and I was never allowed to join anything that required a ride. He donated canned goods during Thanksgiving drives and made sure somebody took a picture. That was Gerald's real religion. Being seen doing good. The man loved public kindness the way some people love pie. He wanted a big slice. Served warm, with everyone watching him enjoy it. At church, people called him generous. At work, they called him dependable. In the neighborhood, they called him a family man. I used to hear it all the time. Gerald, you're a saint for taking that girl in. Donna, I don't know how you do it. What a blessing you've been to her. And Donna would place one hand over her heart, tilt her head just right, and smile, like she had personally carried me through a snowstorm, wrapped in her good linen tablecloth. "Oh, we just did what any decent family would do," she would say. "No, Donna, any decent family would have given me a bedroom with a window. Let's not get carried away." Their house was perfect from the street. That was important to Gerald. 4 bedrooms. White trim. Brick front. Flower beds Donna changed with the seasons. And a lawn so neat it looked like it was afraid to grow wrong. Gerald hired a landscaping crew every other week. But when neighbors complimented the yard, he would say, "Allison keeps busy. I did not mow that lawn." I trimmed a few bushes once and got poison ivy on my wrists. But Gerald never let facts get in the way of a good image. The front porch had rocking chairs nobody sat in. The dining room had a crystal bowl nobody used. The living room had family photographs arranged on the mantel, like evidence in favor of a life that did not exist. There was Gerald in a suit, Donna at a charity luncheon, Megan in her graduation gown, Megan at prom, Megan in front of her new car, Megan holding a birthday cake, Megan, Megan, Megan. There were a few pictures of me, but only the kind that helped the story. A little girl in a Christmas dress. A school photo from 3rd grade. One picture from a church picnic where Donna had her arm around my shoulders tight enough to steer me. In those pictures, I looked clean, quiet, and useful. Exactly the way they liked me. Visitors saw the oak table, the nice curtains, the candles that smelled like vanilla and money. And they assumed warmth lived there. Warmth did not live there. Rules lived there. Appearances lived there. Gerald's temper lived there. But it knew how to stay dressed until the guests left. That was the part most people never understood. Men like Gerald do not act cruel all the time. If they did, everyone would see them coming. No? Gerald could be charming. He could laugh with neighbors over burgers. He could help an elderly woman carry groceries to her car. He could pat a child on the shoulder and tell him to study hard. He could stand in church and pray in a voice so gentle you might think butter would not melt in his mouth. Then he could come home, loosen his tie, look at a streak on the glass door, and say, "What exactly do you do all day?" Donna was better at softness. That made her harder to explain. Gerald, controlled with volume. Silence. Money. And fear. Donna controlled with manners. She corrected me in whispers. She insulted me through compliments. She could make, "You tried your best," sound like a funeral announcement. If Gerald was the judge, Donna was the clerk keeping records. She noticed everything. How much cereal I poured. How long I showered. Whether I used too much laundry detergent. Whether I looked sullen in front of guests. Whether I thanked Gerald fast enough after he bought groceries. "People are watching," she would say. That was one of her favorite lines. People are watching. As if my job was to protect their reputation from the inconvenience of my real life. Whenever guests came over, Donna gave me instructions like she was preparing me for a hostage negotiation. Smile, but do not hover. Speak when spoken to thou. Do not bring up work. Do not mention the basement. It was always called the basement when guests were around. Never the storage closet. Never the room beside the water heater. The basement. Nice and vague. Respectable houses have basements. They do not have adopted daughters sleeping next to plumbing. Megan, meanwhile, floated through life like rules were something printed for other people. If she left dishes in the sink, Donna said she was tired. If I left one spoon, I lacked appreciation. If Megan spent $300 on hair highlights, Gerald said young women should feel confident. If I needed new sneakers for work, he told me money did not grow on trees. Funny how the tree always had fruit when Megan shook it. Megan was not loud in the beginning. She did not have to be. She had inherited the most comfortable position in the house. She was the daughter who belonged. She was the proof that Gerald and Donna were normal parents. She got birthday parties, school trips, new coats, dental appointments, rides to the mall, and hugs that did not look like they were being performed for company. I used to watch Gerald hug Megan in the kitchen. Quick. Casual. Nothing special to them. To me. It looked like a foreign custom. Something people did in families where love did not require witnesses, but Megan learned from them. Of course she did. Children learn the rules of the room they are raised in. She learned that my time was worth less. My sleep was less important. My wants were funny. My discomfort was background noise. If she spilled nail polish on the bathroom counter, she called me. If she needed a dress steamed, she tossed it over the banister. If she wanted coffee but did not want to go downstairs, she texted me from her bed. Once, when I was 17, I told her she could get it herself. She stared at me like the toaster had asked for voting rights. Then she said, "Wow, somebody's ungrateful today." There was that word again, ungrateful, in the Talbot house. Gratitude meant obedience. It meant never asking why Megan's life looked one way and mine looked another. It meant never saying I was tired. It meant never pointing out that being adopted should not make you a servant with a last name. The worst part was how many outsiders helped them keep the act going without even knowing it. At church potlucks, women praised Donna for raising a difficult child. I was not difficult. I was quiet because I had learned quiet was safer. But Donna had a way of sighing when she talked about me. Like I was a casserole that had not turned out right. She has some attachment issues, Donna would say. I did not even know what that meant at the time. I only knew grown women would look at me with pity, then ask me to help stack chairs. At Gerald's office parties, coworkers called me shy. At neighborhood cookouts, people called me well-behaved. At school, teachers called me responsible. That one still makes me laugh a little. And not in a happy way. Responsible is what adults call children when they benefit from the child acting older than they should have to. Nobody asked why I was always exhausted. Nobody asked why Megan had everything, and I had excuses. Nobody asked why I never joined conversations unless spoken to. Or maybe some people did wonder. Maybe they noticed. Maybe they went home and said, "Something seems off over there." But noticing is not the same as helping. The only person who ever looked at me like she truly saw me was Ruth Kessler, the neighbor next door. Ruth was short, sharp-eyed, and old enough not to care whether Gerald liked her. She had white hair she wore in a neat little bob, and a voice that could cut through nonsense without raising itself. Sometimes, when I was carrying trash cans to the curb or dragging groceries from the trunk, Ruth would call from her porch. "You eaten today, honey?" I always said yes. She always knew I was lying. More than once. She brought over muffins or soup and said she had made too much. Ruth never made too much by accident. She was just kind enough not to make me feel small while accepting it. Donna hated that. "She is nosy," Donna said. No. Ruth was observant. There is a difference. And guilty people hate the second one. By the time Gerald's birthday came around, the Talbot performance had been running for 18 years. They knew their lines. Gerald was the noble provider. Donna was the patient mother. Megan was the golden daughter. I was the rescued girl who owed them endless thanks. That night, every guest on that patio was sitting inside the story Gerald had written for them. They saw the string lights, the cake, the wine, the clean house, the smiling wife, the pretty daughter, and the adopted girl carrying trays. They did not see the closet downstairs. They did not see the envelope hidden in my backpack. They did not see the paper Gerald wanted me to sign. They did not see the $340 tucked under my mattress because I was planning for a life they told me I could not have. But the thing about performances is that they only work until somebody forgets the audience is still watching. When Gerald slapped me, he broke character. For one sharp second, the whole patio saw the real man under the pressed polo shirt. And once I saw him clearly, I could not unsee him. Once I saw him clearly, I started remembering all the little warnings I had trained myself to ignore. 2 weeks before the birthday party, Gerald had called me into his home office. That room was his kingdom inside the kingdom. Nobody entered unless invited. And even then, you stepped in like you were approaching a judge who already hated your case. The walls were lined with dark wooden shelves filled with hardcover books he had never opened. I knew he had never opened them because I dusted them every Thursday. And the spines were still stiff. There was a leather chair behind the desk, a framed photo of him shaking hands with the mayor, and a brass nameplate that said Gerald R. Talbot, Senior Account Manager. Gerald loved anything with his name on it. I had just come home from my shift at Rosie's. My shirt smelled like fryer oil. My shoes were wet from mopping, and my wrists ached from lifting dish racks. I had been on my feet for 6 hours. And all I wanted was a shower and maybe 10 minutes where nobody said my name. Donna met me in the hallway. "Your father wants to see you." She always called him that when something serious was coming. Your father. Not Gerald. Not Dad. Your father. Like she was reminding me of my assigned place before I even entered the room. I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked to his office. The door was open. Gerald sat behind the desk in a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, reading glasses low on his nose. A manila folder open in front of him. He did not look up right away. That was part of the show. He liked making people wait while he pretended the paper in front of him was more important than the human being standing in the doorway. Finally, he tapped the chair across from him. Sit down. Not have a seat. Not come in. Just sit down. So I sat. He slid a stack of papers across the desk. 10 or maybe 12 pages. Dance print. Legal language. A blue signature tab stuck out near the bottom, like a little flag waving me toward a cliff. What is this? I asked. A voluntary agreement, Gerald said. The way he said voluntary should have warned me. In that house? Voluntary usually meant I had not yet been forced out loud. He leaned back in his chair and folded his hands over his stomach. It states that you acknowledge you are not financially or emotionally prepared to live independently. It allows this family to continue providing structure and guidance while you get yourself together. Get myself together. I was 21 years old. I worked. I cooked. I cleaned. I paid for my own shampoo when I could. I had never been arrested. Never failed a class because I was lazy. Never done anything more rebellious than hide $5 bills in old socks. But Gerald talked about me like I was a shopping cart with one bad wheel. I picked up the paper and tried to read it. Now, I was not a lawyer. I did not even have a state identification card because Gerald kept all my documents locked away somewhere for safekeeping. But I could read enough to know when something smelled rotten. The first pages were full of words meant to make a person feel too stupid to ask questions. Dependent. Supervision. Continuing care. Emotional instability. Financial risk. Then I got to one sentence on page 4. And my stomach tightened. The agreement authorized Gerald Talbot to continue managing any state, federal, or private benefits associated with my care, support, housing, or maintenance. I read it twice. Then a third time. My eyes stayed on the word, benefits. What benefits? I asked. Gerald's face did not change. But something in his eyes sharpened. Nothing you need to worry about. That was another sentence I had heard my whole life. Nothing you need to worry about. In the Talbot house. It usually meant, this is exactly what you should worry about. But we are not giving you permission. I looked down at the papers again. My hands were sweating. Why would there still be benefits if I'm 21? Gerald removed his glasses slowly. That was his warning sign. Other men raised their voices. Gerald cleaned his glasses. Because you are not ready to live like an adult. I have a job. You wash dishes. It is still a job. He gave a short laugh. $11 an hour and a hairnet is not independence. There it was. That little twist of the knife. He never missed a chance to remind me that any step I took was too small to count. I want to read it before I sign. I said, you can read it right now. I want someone else to look at it. The office went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Warning, quiet. Gerald put his glasses down on the desk. Who exactly would you show it to? I did not have an answer. That was the sad part. He knew I did not have anybody. No aunt. No grandparent. No family friend who would take my side. No lawyer. No teacher I still talked to. No one. He had made sure of that. Still, I said, maybe someone at work. His mouth tightened. At Rosie's? You want some short-order cook giving legal advice now? I just want to understand what I'm signing. You understand enough? No. I don't. That was the first time I said no to him and meant it. It was not loud. It did not shake the walls. It was not the kind of brave movie moment where music rises and the heroine suddenly becomes powerful. My voice barely made it across the desk. But Gerald heard it. And he hated it. His face changed in a way I had seen only a few times before. The polite mask stayed on. But his eyes went flat. Like I had stopped being a person and become a problem. He leaned forward. Listen to me carefully. Allison. Without this family, you are nothing. You do not have savings. You do not have a car. You do not have a degree. You do not even have an identification card. You leave this house. And you will be on the street before the week is over. I looked at the signature tab. Then why do you need me to sign? That question landed harder than I expected. Gerald stared at me. For 1 second, I saw panic. Not much. Just a flicker. The kind a man like him would never admit to. But I saw it. It came and went fast. Like a light under a closed door. Then he smiled. I hated that smile. Because courts and agencies like paperwork. That is how the world works. Adults understand that. What agency? Enough! There it was again. The door slamming shut. He tapped the signature line with one finger. You will sign this before my birthday. I pushed the papers back toward him. I need more time. Gerald did not yell. Honestly, yelling would have been easier. Instead, he gathered the papers, lined them up perfectly, placed them back in the manila folder, and slid the folder into his desk drawer. Then he closed the drawer slowly. Click. That sound stayed with me. It sounded like a lock. He stood and walked around the desk until he was close enough that I could smell his aftershave. You have been indulged too much, he said. Donna told me you were getting ideas from that restaurant. I should have known. Ideas. That was what he called it when I wanted basic control over my own life. He lowered his voice. I took you in when nobody wanted you. I gave you a roof, food, clothes, a family name, and now you want to act like I owe you explanations? My throat felt tight, but I made myself answer. I just want to know what the paper does. It protects you from yourself. No, it did not. I did not know much, but I knew that. It protected him. I could feel it in my bones. He opened the office door, which meant I was dismissed. I stood up and walked out. Donna was in the hallway pretending to adjust a picture frame. She had been listening. Of course she had. Donna could hear a cupboard close from another county if it involved me. Well? She asked softly. I kept walking. Behind me, Gerald said. She will sign. Not I hope she signs. Not we will discuss it. She will sign. For the next 2 weeks, the house changed. Not in a way outsiders would notice. The lawn still looked perfect. Donna still lit her vanilla candles. Megan still complained about her phone charger disappearing when it was usually under her own pillow. But inside, the air tightened. Gerald watched me more closely. If I came home from work 10 minutes late, he asked why. If I took a phone call outside, Donna appeared near the door. If I carried my backpack upstairs, Megan asked what I was hiding. The answer was $340. One strange envelope from the Virginia Department of Social Services, and a growing suspicion that the people who called themselves my family were afraid of what I might learn. The envelope had been in my backpack for months by then. I found it when Gerald decided Megan needed a yoga room. That was the official reason he cleared out my storage closet one Saturday morning. Megan had watched one online video about wellness and suddenly needed a peaceful space for stretching, candles, and complaining about stress she had never earned. Gerald threw my things into a black garbage bag. Clothes, old school papers, baby items I did not remember, a cracked picture frame, a cardboard box that had water stains on the corner. He tossed it all by the curb. I waited until he went inside, then dragged the bag behind the garage and went through it piece by piece. When you grow up knowing your belongings can disappear without warning, you learn to rescue your own life from the trash. At the bottom of that box was the manila envelope. Official seal, Virginia, Department of Social Services. My name on the front, Allison G. Talbot. Inside was a document with words I did not understand then. Title 4E Adoption Assistance Monthly Disbursement Summary. I did not know what Title 4E meant. I did not know why money was listed month after month. I did not know why Gerald had never shown it to me. But I knew enough to hide it. Now, after seeing that voluntary agreement, the envelope felt heavier, like a puzzle piece I had been carrying without knowing there was a puzzle. The night before Gerald's birthday, Donna left a chore list on the kitchen counter. 2 pages. Her handwriting neat and bossy. Sweep patio, set chairs, press tablecloth, wash platters, slice lemons evenly. Even the lemons had standards in that house. At the bottom, in smaller writing, she added, "Be pleasant. Your father deserves a good day." I looked at that sentence for a long time. Your father deserves a good day. Nobody ever asked what I deserved. The next morning, I got up at 5 and did every chore on that list. Not because I was weak, not because I had surrendered, but because I had learned that sometimes you survive by doing what is expected while your mind quietly packs a bag. I had not planned to leave that night. Not exactly. I only knew I was getting closer to a door I could not see yet. So when Gerald opened that wallet in front of everyone and called it worthless junk, when he stood up and raised his hand, when the slap cracked across my face, it was not just cruelty. It was confirmation. He had tried paperwork, he had tried fear, he had tried reminding me I had nowhere to go. And when I still did not sign away whatever he wanted from me, he used the one thing men like Gerald always reach for when control starts slipping: punishment. That was why I did not apologize. That was why I did not beg. That was why I walked downstairs, packed my backpack, and took the envelope with me. Because I finally understood the truth. The paper he wanted me to sign was not about protecting me from the world. It was about protecting his world from me. That was the thought I carried with me as I stepped off the Talbot lawn and onto the dark street with my backpack on my shoulder. I had no plan. No ride. No hotel reservation. No friend waiting with a couch and a warm cup of coffee. I had $340. A phone with a cracked screen. And a cheek that felt like somebody had pressed a hot iron against it. Not exactly the kind of fresh start people put in inspirational movies, but I kept walking. The Talbot house sat on a quiet cul-de-sac in Henrico County, Virginia. The kind of neighborhood where people watered their lawns, waved from driveways, and pretended every house was as peaceful inside as it looked from the curb. At night, it got dark in a way that made the streetlights feel too far apart. Not city dark, where there is always a gas station glowing somewhere. Suburban dark. Polita dark. The kind that keeps secrets behind vinyl shutters. Behind me, the party noise faded. At first, I could still hear music, laughter, a burst of applause that made my stomach twist. I wondered if Gerald had made a joke after I left. Maybe something about young people being sensitive. Maybe something about me needing to cool off. He was good at that. Turning cruelty into a story where he was the reasonable one. By the time I reached the end of the block, the music was gone. All I could hear were my shoes hitting the sidewalk and the faint buzz of insects in the grass. I did not cry. I know people expect tears at a moment like that. Maybe I should have cried. Maybe it would have made me seem softer. More sympathetic. More like the kind of woman who suffers beautifully for an audience. But I was too tired. There is a level of exhaustion that sits deeper than sadness. It does not ask for tissues. It asks for directions. The problem was, I did not have any. I walked toward Patterson Avenue because it was the only larger road I knew by foot. I had taken buses near there before. Back when Gerald actually renewed my bus pass for 1 month and acted like he had sent me to Europe. I thought maybe I could find a motel. Maybe I could find a 24-hour diner and sit in a booth until morning. Maybe Rosie would let me sleep in the storage room behind the restaurant. Then I remembered I did not work the next day. And I had no key. Small details become big problems when you are alone. The October air was cold enough to make my cheeks sting worse. I pulled my hoodie tighter. But it did not help much. Every few minutes, a car passed. Headlights sweeping over me. Each time. I looked down and kept walking. I did not want anyone asking questions. I also wanted someone to ask questions. That is the strange thing about being hurt for a long time. You want help. But help feels dangerous because every hand you have known came with a bill. I checked my phone. 9:12 p.m. No missed calls. Not from Donna. Not from Megan. Not from Gerald. Nobody had even texted. For 21 years. They told me I would be lost without them. Then I walked out. And they let me disappear like I was a grocery receipt blown off the counter. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because sometimes your mind needs to let steam out before the whole machine breaks. I kept walking. A mile passed. Maybe more. My shoulders started to ache from the backpack. My legs were tired from being on my feet since 5 that morning. I had eaten half a biscuit while setting up the party and nothing since. That was normal for me. Which tells you everything you need to know. At one point, I stopped near a closed dry cleaner and looked at my reflection in the dark window. My hair had slipped out of its ponytail. My left cheek was swollen and red, already turning darker near the cheekbone. I looked older than 21 and younger than I should have, like a woman and a scared kid were fighting over the same face. Allison, I whispered, just to hear something. The name sounded wrong. It had always sounded wrong. I did not know why then. I only knew it never fit. Gerald said it like an order. Donna said it like a correction. Megan said it like a complaint. Nobody ever said it like it belonged to someone worth loving. I turned away from the window and kept going. That was when headlights slowed behind me. At first, I ignored them. Cars slow down for all kinds of reasons. A turn. A dog. Someone checking a mailbox. I told myself not to panic. Then the vehicle rolled past me and stopped about 10 feet ahead. Black Cadillac Escalade. Clean. Tinted windows. Virginia plates. My whole body went tight. Every bad story I had ever heard came rushing into my head at once. Young woman walking alone. Dark road. Strange car? No witnesses. Great, I thought. I finally escaped Gerald, and now I am about to become a cautionary tale on the evening news. The rear passenger door opened. I took one step back. Then a man got out. He was in his mid-50s. Tall and lean. Wearing a charcoal coat that looked expensive without shouting about it. His hair was dark brown with silver in it. Neatly combed, but not stiff. He held his hands where I could see them. Palms slightly open. Like he was approaching a frightened animal and knew it. Behind him, a woman stepped out on the other side. Red hair pulled back. Sharp eyes. Dark suit. Leather portfolio tucked under one arm. She did not come toward me. She stayed near the car, watching carefully. The man looked at me, and I stopped breathing. His eyes were hazel green, not just green, not just light brown. The exact strange mix I had seen in my own reflection every morning in the bathroom mirror. Wide-set. Serious. Familiar in a way that made no sense. "I'm sorry to frighten you," he said. His voice cracked on the word sorry. That bothered me more than if he had sounded confident. Men like Gerald were always confident. This man looked terrified. But not of me. For me. "My name is Richard Whitford," he said. "And I believe I am your biological father." I stared at him, then I laughed once. Short and ugly. No. It was the only word I had. He did not move closer. "I know how that sounds." "No. You don't." My voice came out sharper than I expected. "My biological parents didn't want me. That's what I was told." His face changed. Not dramatically. He did not gasp or clutch his chest. But something in him folded inward. Like those words had hit a place already bruised. "You were told wrong," he said. The red-haired woman spoke then. Calm and professional. "My name is Margaret Hale. I'm an attorney. Family law. We are not here to force you into anything. You are an adult. You can walk away right now. And we will not follow you." That should have comforted me. It did. A little, but I had spent my whole life around people who said one thing and meant another. So I kept my weight on my back foot. Ready to run, Richard reached slowly into the inside pocket of his coat. I tensed. He noticed and stopped immediately. "It's only a photograph," he said. "May I show you?" No one had asked permission like that in the Talbot house. I nodded once. He pulled out a small photo. Worn at the corners. The kind of picture someone has touched too many times to count. He held it out. But he did not make me come close. He let me decide. I stepped forward just enough to take it. A woman with auburn hair was sitting on a porch swing, holding a toddler on her lap. The woman had cheekbones like mine. Same mouth. Same little uneven tilt in the smile. The toddler had hazel green eyes, and one hand gripping the woman's blouse. I knew that child was me before anyone said it. My fingers tightened around the photo. "Her name was Catherine," Richard said quietly. "She was your mother." The street seemed to go still around me, not silent. Cars still passed somewhere far off. Leaves scraped along the curb. But inside my head, everything stopped moving. "She died in a car accident when you were 2, he said. "I was in the car with her. I survived. But I was badly injured. While I was in the hospital, you were placed in emergency foster care. When I recovered enough to try to bring you home, I was told I had signed away my parental rights." He swallowed. "I never signed anything." I looked from the photograph to him. "You're lying." "I wish I were." Margaret took one careful step closer. "Mr. Whitford has spent years trying to locate you. Adoption files were sealed. There were legal barriers. We only confirmed your current identity recently." "Current identity?" "Allison Grace Talbot," she said. "But your birth name was Hilary Catherine Whitford." Hilary. The name landed somewhere deep, not like a shock, more like a key sliding into a lock I did not know I had been carrying. Hilary. I did not say it out loud. Not yet. I touched the edge of the photo. Why now? Richard looked toward the Talbot neighborhood behind me, then back at my face. His eyes dropped to the bruise on my cheek. And for 1 second, the controlled man in the nice coat almost disappeared. His jaw tightened so hard I saw the muscle jump. We had someone watching the house, Margaret said. Legally. From a distance. Tonight's gathering gave us the clearest chance to confirm your identity visually. When you left alone, injured, we made the decision to approach. You were watching me? Yes, Margaret said. No flinching. No sugar on it. And I understand why that sounds invasive, but given the history of the case and the people involved, we were concerned for your safety. My safety? I almost laughed again. That is new. Richard looked like he wanted to say something, but he waited. That waiting made me nervous. Gerald filled silence with pressure. Donna filled it with guilt. Megan filled it with noise. These people were letting silence stand on its own 2 feet, and I did not know what to do with that. Margaret gestured toward the SUV. We can drive you somewhere safe. A hotel. A police station. A hospital. Anywhere you choose. Or we can leave you here with my card and you can call later. You decide. You decide. Those 2 words nearly broke me. Not because they were dramatic. Because nobody in my life had ever meant them. I looked down the road. Dark sidewalk. Closed businesses. No plan. No food. No room. No one coming for me. Then I looked at the photograph again. Catherine's smile. My eyes in the face of a child who had not yet learned to be afraid. I handed the photo back to Richard, but he shook his head. Keep it, he said. It belongs to you. I stood there with my backpack slipping off one shoulder and the night pressing in around us. Every instinct told me not to trust strangers. But the truth was, the people who had hurt me most were not strangers at all. So I took a breath and made the first real choice of my life. I'll get in, I said. But I'm not going anywhere without answers. Richard nodded. And his eyes went wet. Then answers are exactly where we start. Richard opened the SUV door for me, and I climbed inside like a person stepping into a life that might still turn around and bite her. The back seat smelled like leather, coffee, and something clean I could not name. The heater was on low. I had not realized how cold I was until warmth touched my hands. I sat with my backpack on my lap, both arms wrapped around it like someone might try to take it away. Richard sat on the opposite side, leaving space between us. Margaret sat in the front passenger seat, opened her leather portfolio, and clicked on a small reading light. Nobody grabbed me. Nobody told me to calm down. Nobody said I was being dramatic. That alone made me suspicious. Gerald always wanted a reaction he could control. If I cried, he called me unstable. If I stayed quiet, he called me cold. If I asked questions, he called me ungrateful. There was no winning in that house. Only choosing which way you wanted to lose. So when Richard looked at me with those familiar hazel green eyes and said, "Ask me anything," I did not know where to begin. My mouth felt dry. What was her name again? He knew who I meant. Catherine Ann Whitford, he said. Your mother, Catherine. It was strange how a name could make a person real. For 21 years, my mother had been a blank space filled in by Gerald's version of things. According to him, she was irresponsible, selfish, probably young, probably careless, probably glad to be rid of me. He never had facts. Just enough poison to keep me from asking too much. Richard reached into his coat pocket again, slower this time, and pulled out another photograph. Not the porch swing picture. This one showed a woman standing in front of a red brick house with a red front door. She was pregnant, one hand on her belly, laughing at whoever held the camera. Her auburn hair was loose around her shoulders. She wore jeans, a green sweater, and scuffed white sneakers. She did not look like a woman who did not want her baby. She was 7 months pregnant there, Richard said. She said she looked like she had swallowed a basketball. I told her she looked beautiful. She told me I was smart enough to stay married. I almost smiled, but it got caught somewhere. Was she funny? She was very funny. Dry. Quick. She could cut a man down with one sentence and still make him thank her for it. That sounded like someone I would have liked. What happened? I asked. Richard looked down at his hands. They were large, steady hands, except his left thumb kept rubbing the side of his index finger like he was trying to erase something from his skin. "It was March," he said. "You were too." Catherine and I were driving east on Interstate 64. We were going to visit her sister near Williamsburg for the weekend. "You were home with our neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez. Catherine did not like having you in the car for long drives if she could avoid it. She said toddlers had two settings: asleep and furious." That time, I did smile. Barely. He saw it. And the pain in his face softened for 1 second. A delivery truck crossed the median. He continued. "It happened fast. Too fast for anything useful. Catherine died at the scene." He stopped. Margaret did not turn around. She looked down at the papers in her lap, giving him the dignity of not being watched while he said the worst sentence of his life. Richard cleared his throat. "I was in the passenger seat. Broken pelvis. Collapsed lung. Head injury. I was in the ICU first. Then surgery. Then rehab. I do not remember the first few weeks clearly. I remember waking up and asking for Catherine. Then asking for you?" The heater hummed quietly. I held the backpack tighter. "What happened to me?" "You were placed in emergency foster care," Margaret said gently. "That can happen when one parent dies and the other parent is medically incapacitated. On paper, it is supposed to be temporary." "On paper?" I said. Margaret nodded. "Yes. On paper." Richard's voice came back, rough but controlled. When I was strong enough to speak clearly and sign forms, I told the hospital social worker I needed to get my daughter. That is when I heard the name Leonard Grubb for the first time. The name meant nothing to me then, but the way Richard said it made my stomach tighten. "He was the child welfare worker assigned to your case," Margaret said. "He reported to the court that Richard had voluntarily relinquished his parental rights." I looked at Richard. "You signed me away?" "No." He answered so quickly that I believed he believed it. That did not mean I believed everything yet. I was not that generous. Trust, for me, was not a light switch. It was a rusty gate. "They had a document," Margaret said. "A consent form. It had Richard's name on it. A signature. The court accepted it. But he was in the hospital." "Yes," she said. "That is one of the central facts." Richard leaned forward, elbows on his knees, but still did not come closer. "I was on a ventilator for part of that time. I could not hold a pen. I could barely hold a cup. But the court had a form with my name on it. And by the time I was able to challenge it properly, the adoption process had moved forward." "To Gerald and Donna," I said. Richard closed his eyes once. "Yes." I looked out the window. The streetlights slid across the glass as cars passed behind us. Somewhere back there, Gerald was probably still drinking wine and telling people I had embarrassed him. Of course he would think that. Gerald could steal a whole life and still complain about fingerprints on the silverware. "How did they get me?" I asked. Margaret turned a page in her file. Gerald and Donna Talbot were already approved as foster-to-adopt parents. They had connections through their church and community service programs. At that time, they appeared stable. Married couple. Homeowner. Biological child in the home. No criminal record. They looked good in a file. A laugh came out of me before I could stop it. "They looked good in a file." "I know," Margaret said. "Files can miss a lot." That was one polite way to put it. A file had missed the storage closet. The missing doctor visits. The way Gerald checked my bank account. The way Donna watched me work and called it character building. The way Megan treated me like a remote control with legs. Richard looked at me. "I fought it. I need you to know that. I hired an attorney as soon as I could. I filed petitions. I asked for records. I asked for your placement information. The adoption file was sealed. I was told I had no standing because I had relinquished my rights. But you hadn't." "No." "And nobody listened?" His mouth tightened. "Some people listened. Nobody with the power to fix it." That sentence sat between us for a while. I hated how much sense it made. "How long did you look for me?" I asked. "Every year." "That is not an answer." He nodded. Accepting the correction. 18 years. I turned toward him. "You looked for me for 18 years?" "Yes." "Why?" The question came out harder than I intended. But I needed to hear the answer. Not the pretty version. Not some Hallmark card answer. The real one. Richard's eyes filled. but his voice stayed steady. Because you were my daughter. That was it. No speech. No performance. No claim that he was a hero. Just the answer. Because you were my daughter. I looked away fast because something inside me was starting to hurt in a way I did not understand. Not the slap. Not fear. Something older. Something that had been waiting too long. Margaret passed a folder back to me. You do not have to read these now. But these are copies of Richard's early petitions, investigator invoices, court correspondence, and later search records. I want you to understand this is documented. I opened it because of course I did. If life had taught me anything, it was to trust paper before promises. There were dates, court stamps, letters, names of investigators, requests for sealed records, denials, appeals, more requests, more denials, year after year. While I was folding Gerald's shirts and sleeping beside a water heater, this man had been filing papers with my birth name on them. Hilary Catherine Whitford. I stared at the name. Say it, Richard said softly. I did not. Not yet. I touched the paper instead. Hilary, I whispered finally. So low I almost did not hear myself. The name felt strange, but not wrong. That was new. Margaret watched me carefully. There is another piece, she said. We have reason to believe Gerald Talbot may have paid Leonard Grubb before the adoption was finalized. My head snapped up. Paid him? We are still gathering evidence, she said. But there are financial records we are trying to obtain. If the payment proves what we think it proves, then this was not just a mistake. It was fraud. Richard's jaw tightened again. Your mother died, he said. I was nearly dead, and someone used that window of time to take you. I looked at the photograph in my hand, Catherine laughing with one hand on her pregnant belly, a woman who had wanted me, a father who had searched, a name that had been buried under someone else's lie. For 21 years, Gerald had told me I was unwanted. He said it when I asked too many questions. Donna implied it when she reminded me to be grateful. Megan joked about it whenever she wanted to feel taller. Nobody wanted you. We took you in. You owe us. But sitting in that warm SUV, holding proof in my lap, I felt the first crack in that old story. Maybe I had not been thrown away. Maybe I had been stolen. And somehow, that hurt worse and healed something at the same time. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my hoodie, angry that my eyes had gone wet. I want a DNA test, I said. Richard nodded immediately. Of course. No hesitation. No offense. That word again. Of course. I mean it, I said. I am not just going to believe you because you have pictures and sad stories. You shouldn't, he said. You should have proof. I stared at him. That was the moment I knew Gerald had damaged me more than I understood. Because a grown man respecting a reasonable request felt suspicious. Margaret closed her portfolio. I can arrange a test through an accredited lab in Richmond. Chain of custody. Legal standard. Results in a few business days. Good, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. And until then? Richard looked at me. Then at my backpack. Until then, we get you somewhere safe. A hotel. Unless you prefer something else. Separate rooms. Your choice. No pressure. I almost asked what it would cost me. That was the Talbot training talking. Instead, I looked down at Catherine's photograph one more time, then at Richard, then at the dark road outside, where I had been walking with nowhere to go. A hotel is fine, I said. Richard nodded once, and Margaret told the driver the address. As the SUV pulled away from the curb, I watched the neighborhood lights blur past the window. I did not know if Richard Whitford was truly my father yet. I did not know what a court would say. I did not know what Gerald had done, or how deep the lie went. But for the first time in my life, the story was no longer being told only by the people who had hurt me, and that was enough to keep me moving forward. The hotel room door closed behind me with a soft click, and I stood there, waiting for someone to tell me what to do. Nobody did. That was the first strange thing. The second strange thing was the room itself. It was just a standard hotel room off Broad Street in Richmond. Nothing fancy enough to make anybody faint. But to me it looked like a private suite at the White House. A real bed with white sheets. A bathroom with clean towels folded like somebody cared. A little desk. A lamp. A window. A window. I walked straight to it and pulled the curtain open. Outside, there was a parking lot. A few trees. And the glow of streetlights reflecting off car roofs. Not exactly a postcard. Unless your standards have been beaten down by a storage closet and a water heater. But I stood there looking out like I had just discovered the Grand Canyon. For years, I had woken up without sunlight. I knew morning had come only because Donna yelled down the stairs or the pipes started groaning. Now there was glass between me and the world. And for once, the world was not locked away. Richard had booked 2 rooms with an adjoining door. He did not open that door. He did not knock every 5 minutes. He did not hover. He said, "Margaret is right next door if you need anything. I'm across the hall. You can lock your door. We'll talk in the morning." Then he left. I stood there for a long time, waiting for the catch. There was always a catch with Gerald. A gift meant obedience, a ride meant a lecture, a meal meant gratitude, a roof meant ownership, but no catch appeared. No demand. No reminder that I owed someone. Just a quiet room and a bed I was apparently allowed to sleep in. I put my backpack on the desk and unzipped it. 2 shirts. 1 pair of jeans. Toothbrush. Phone charger. $340 in wrinkled bills. The photograph of Catherine. And the manila envelope I had pulled from the trash months earlier. The envelope looked uglier under the hotel lamp. Virginia Department of Social Services. Allison G. Talbot. Title 4E. Adoption Assistance Monthly Disbursement Summary. I had carried that envelope around for 6 months without understanding what it really meant. At the Talbot house, I had hidden it under my mattress. Then, inside a shoebox. Then finally in my backpack after Gerald pushed that voluntary agreement across his desk. It had felt important, dangerous, even. But I did not know why. Now, after everything Richard and Margaret had told me, I placed it on the desk like evidence. My hands were shaking, so I sat down. I read the top line again. Title 4E. Adoption Assistance. Monthly Disbursement. There were dates in one column, amounts in another. $810 appeared again and again. Month after month. Year after year. Like a drumbeat I had never heard until now. $810? I said it out loud. Not because the number was huge by itself. Plenty of people spend more than that on rent, car payments, insurance, groceries, or one bad trip to the dentist. But $810 every month for years? For me? While I slept on a mattress from the curb? That was not support. That was a business model. I picked up my phone and searched just enough to understand the basics. Title 4E had to do with federal adoption assistance for children with special circumstances. Money meant to help adoptive parents provide care, stability, and support. HER. Stability. Support. I almost laughed so hard I scared myself. Care was me patching my own work shoes with glue because Gerald said new ones were not in the budget. Stability was sleeping beside a water heater and learning which nights the furnace made that rattling sound. Support was Donna handing me Megan's old coat and saying, "It's still perfectly good if you don't act picky." $810 a month, and Gerald had called me a burden. I thought back to all those years when he sighed over groceries like I was eating the family into poverty. How many times had he stood at the kitchen counter, holding a receipt, saying, "Do you have any idea what it costs to keep you here?" Apparently, Gerald, I was the one paying rent. I had not known it. Of course, that was the trick. A child cannot argue with numbers she is never allowed to see. A young woman cannot question benefits she does not know exist. He kept my documents locked away, kept my name confusing, kept my world small, and then told me I was helpless. It was not an accident. It was design. The next morning, I woke up at 5 out of habit. My heart was already racing before my eyes opened. For one confused second, I thought I was back in the closet and late for chores. I almost sat up thinking I had to start coffee, unload the dishwasher, fold the towels, and sweep the patio before Donna came downstairs. Then I saw the hotel curtains, the white sheets, the desk, the envelope. I was not there anymore. That should have made me feel safe. Instead, it made me feel hollow. When fear has been your alarm clock for most of your life, peace does not feel peaceful at first. It feels like you forgot something and someone is about to punish you for it. A soft knock came from the hallway around 7. I froze. Then Richard's voice came through the door. It's Richard. I brought coffee. I can leave it outside if you'd rather. I stared at the door. Gerald would have knocked once, then walked in. Donna would have opened it while saying she was not invading my privacy. Just checking. Megan would not have knocked at all. I'll open it, I said. Richard stood in the hallway holding 2 paper cups and a small bag from the lobby breakfast bar. He looked tired. Not polished, tired. Either. Real tired. The kind that sits under the eyes and does not care who sees. He handed me a cup. I did not know how you take coffee. Neither do I said. That surprised a laugh out of him. Just a small one. He handed me the bag too. There's a muffin in there. Blueberry. If you hate blueberry, I apologize in advance for my terrible fatherly instincts. I did not know what to do with that. Fatherly. The word stood in the room between us, wearing shoes too big for the moment. Thank you, I said. He nodded and stayed in the doorway. Still, not stepping in. Margaret arrived a few minutes later, already dressed like she had been awake, arguing with judges since dawn. She had a fresh legal pad, her portfolio, and the calm expression of a woman who could probably cross-examine a vending machine into returning exact change. I placed the envelope on the desk. I need you to explain this, I said. Margaret did not touch it right away. She looked at me first. May I? I nodded. She opened the envelope and read through the pages carefully. Richard stood near the window, his coffee untouched. After a minute, Margaret's expression changed. Not a lot. She was too professional for that, but her mouth tightened, and one eyebrow lifted just enough for me to know this was not nothing. This is an adoption subsidy record, she said. What does that mean in regular English? It means the state of Virginia paid Gerald and Donna Talbot a monthly amount to help provide for your care after the adoption. How much? She looked back at the page. Approximately $810 per month. I swallowed. For how long? Margaret turned another page. It appears to have continued for roughly 18 years. Richard closed his eyes. I did the math badly in my head. Because stress does not exactly make a person a calculator. Margaret did it properly. That totals around $174,960. The room went quiet. $174,960. I had never even seen $1,000 in one place. I thought of Gerald saying lunch meat was expensive. Donna telling me dental cleanings could wait. Megan getting a Toyota Camry at 16 while I got shoes with cracked soles. The Apple Watch. The highlights. The credit card. The room upstairs with the vanity lights. My stomach turned. How much of that was supposed to be used for me? I asked. Margaret's voice softened. But only a little. She was kind. Not sentimental. And I appreciated that more than she knew. The purpose of adoption assistance is to support the child's care and needs. Housing. Food. Clothing. Medical care. Education. Stability. It is not meant to enrich the adoptive parents or fund unrelated family expenses. I looked at the hotel bed. The white sheets blurred for a second. So when Gerald said I cost too much, he was lying, Richard said. His voice was low. I turned to him. He was looking at the envelope like it had personally insulted him. His jaw was tight, and his left hand was curled into a fist at his side. He was not just lying, I said slowly. He was charging me for being stolen. Richard flinched. Not because I had accused him, because the sentence was true enough to hurt. Margaret placed the document back on the desk. This is important evidence. Very important. It shows motive. It may also support a claim that the funds were misused, especially when combined with your living conditions and the lack of medical care. My living conditions? I repeated. That sounded so official, so clean. It did not smell like damp wool. It did not show the cold floor. It did not include the feeling of changing clothes 2 feet from a water heater because there was nowhere else to stand. But I understood why she said it that way. Courts like clean words. Pain has to dress up before it can be admitted as evidence. Margaret asked me questions then. Had I received regular medical care? No. Dental care? Not after middle school. Did I have access to my birth certificate? No. Social Security card? No. State ID? No. Did I have my own bedroom? I almost said yes out of habit. Then I stopped. No. I said. I slept in a storage closet. Margaret wrote that down. A storage closet. Seeing it on her legal pad made it feel both smaller and more real. One line of ink for years of my life. Did Gerald or Donna ever explain the subsidy to you? No. Did they ever give you any portion of the money? No. Did they ever tell you government benefits existed in your name? No. Each no felt like pulling a nail out of a board. Painful. But necessary if anything was going to come loose. When Margaret finished, she closed her notebook. We will need to obtain official records from the Department of Social Services. This copy is strong, but the certified records will be stronger. We will also need to document your condition when you left, including the bruise. My hand went to my cheek. It was darker now, purple along the bone, tender when I touched it. Gerald did that in front of guests? I said. Yes, Margaret said. And that may matter. I thought of Ruth Kessler standing up in her navy cardigan, small and steady, while everyone else discovered sudden interest in their plates. Ruth saw it, I said. The neighbor. Margaret wrote the name immediately. Good. Good. What a strange word for something so ugly. But I understood. Ugly things can become useful when the truth finally needs backup. After Margaret left to make calls, I sat alone with Richard for a few minutes. He did not ask me how I felt. Maybe he knew I did not know. Maybe he knew the question was too big. I looked at the envelope again. All those years, I said. He called me a burden. Richard's eyes were wet. But he did not interrupt. He said I should be grateful. He said I owed him. And the whole time, they were getting paid. My voice did not break. It got colder. I was not a burden. I was a paycheck. Richard looked away toward the window, and I could see him fighting for control. Not the Gerald kind of control. The kind that keeps anger from landing on the wrong person. I am so sorry, he said. I believed that he was. But I was learning something important. An apology could not give back 18 years. Only truth could start to sort through the damage. I picked up the photograph of Catherine from the desk and placed it beside the subsidy record. My mother's face next to Gerald's numbers. One woman who had loved me. One ledger that proved I had been used. For the first time, the story was not just sad. It was clear, and clarity, I was beginning to learn, can be sharper than anger. The next morning, I buttoned the navy blazer Richard had bought me and stared at myself in the hotel mirror until the woman looking back stopped feeling like a stranger. I did not look powerful. I did not look fearless. I looked like a tired 21-year-old woman who had learned how to stand up straight even while her knees were thinking about resigning. That was enough. Margaret arrived at 8 with the file boxes. Not one folder. Not a dramatic little envelope like people use in movies when they say, "This changes everything." Real life is less stylish and much heavier. She had 2 banker's boxes. Color-coded tabs. Certified copies. Sworn statements. Lab results. Financial records. And a legal pad covered in handwriting so neat it looked mildly threatening. Richard stood by the door in a dark suit. He had not slept much. Neither had I. But he did not make the morning about his pain. He only looked at me and said, "Whatever happens today, you do not have to go back." That sentence went into my chest and stayed there. You do not have to go back. I had written something similar in a notebook the night before. No matter what happens, I will never sleep beside that water heater again. I will never answer to a name that was used to control me. I will never again confuse being used with being loved. Margaret checked her watch. Ready? No. But I nodded anyway. The courthouse in Richmond was old brick. Serious and square. The kind of building that made every footstep sound like it had legal consequences. We arrived early. I sat on a wooden bench outside the courtroom with Richard on one side and Margaret on the other. Derek Simmons, the social worker, stood nearby with his report. Ruth Kessler sat 2 rows behind us in a navy cardigan and sensible shoes. When I saw Ruth, my throat tightened. She gave me a small nod. Not pity. Not drama. Just steady support from a 70-year-old woman who had more courage in her little finger than most of Gerald's guests had in their whole pressed shirt bodies. Gerald arrived at 8:40. Of course he did not come alone. Donna was on his arm in a beige dress. Pearls at her ears. Tissue already folded in one hand in case she needed to perform heartbreak on short notice. Megan walked behind them, looking annoyed. nervous, and underdressed for court. Gerald wore a gray suit and burgundy tie. His hair was perfect. His shoes were polished. His chin was lifted. He looked like a man who believed reputation was a shield. Then he saw me. His eyes moved from my face to my blazer, then to Richard, then to Margaret, then to the boxes of evidence. For the first time in my life, I watched Gerald Talbot do mental math and come up short. Donna's hand tightened around his arm. Megan pulled out her phone, then seemed to remember where she was and shoved it back in her purse. Small miracles do happen. Gerald looked straight at me. I looked straight back. He expected Allison. He found Hillary. The clerk opened the courtroom door and called the case. We walked in. Two sides of one stolen life. And sat at separate tables. The judge was Honorable Patricia Dwyer. She was in her 60s, with silver hair, reading glasses, and the kind of calm face that made nonsense look nervous. Margaret stood first. "Your Honor," she said, "we are here to present evidence that the adoption of Hillary Catherine Whitford, later styled Allison Grace Talbot, was obtained through fraud. Specifically, the forged consent of her biological father, followed by financial exploitation of adoption assistance funds." Gerald's lawyer stood up with a single folder in his hand. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He argued that the adoption was finalized years earlier. That Gerald and Donna had raised me. That reopening the matter would be disruptive and unnecessary. He said the word family more than once, which was bold for a man who had clearly not seen my bedroom. Judge Dwyer looked over her glasses. "The court will hear the petitioner's evidence." Margaret began with the DNA report. 99.998% probability of paternity. Richard Whitford was my biological father. The judge reviewed it, nodded, and placed it aside. Then came the handwriting analysis. Dr. Elaine Marsh's report stated that the signature on the voluntary relinquishment form was not produced by Richard Whitford. Margaret explained the comparison. Known signatures. Pressure patterns. Letter formation. Inconsistencies. Gerald sat very still. His stillness was not peace. It was calculation. Then, Margaret presented the bank record. $5,000. Transferred from Gerald Talbot's personal checking account to Leonard Grubb, the social worker assigned to my case. Shortly before the adoption was finalized, that was when the courtroom changed. Before that, people had been listening. Now they were paying attention. Gerald's lawyer shifted in his seat. Donna dabbed at her eyes. Megan stared at the table like maybe the wood grain would offer her a ride home. Margaret turned to Gerald. "Mr. Talbot, do you know Leonard Grubb?" Gerald lifted his chin. "Not personally." Margaret placed a photograph on the display screen. Gerald, younger, standing beside Leonard Grubb at a church picnic, paper plate in hand, big smile. Community Man of the Year. If the award were given for fraud with potato salad, this photograph was taken at First Baptist Church 1 year before the adoption was finalized. Margaret said, "Do you still maintain you did not know him personally?" Gerald's jaw flexed. "I may have met him in passing. Church events are large." Margaret did not blink. "Large enough for a $5,000 personal transfer?" She placed the bank statement on the screen. Gerald's lawyer looked like a man who had just realized his umbrella was actually a napkin. "That was a charitable contribution," Gerald said. "To Mr. H. Grubb's personal account?" No answer. Margaret let the silence work. Good lawyers know silence can do more damage than shouting. Then Derek Simmons took the stand. He described the storage closet. Approximately 60 square feet. No exterior window. Mattress visibly worn and damaged. No documented medical care after age 14. No dental records after middle school. No state identification in my possession. No access to my social security card or birth certificate. Adoption assistance funds inconsistent with my actual care. He did not sound angry. That made it worse for Gerald. Facts do not need to raise their voice. Ruth Kessler testified next. She walked to the stand slowly but firmly, took the oath, and told the truth. She said she had watched me carry groceries, clean, haul trash, wash cars, and serve guests while Megan relaxed. She said I was treated more like hired help than family. Then she described the birthday party. Gerald struck her across the face. Ruth said, "In front of everyone, She had given him a birthday gift. And he called it worthless. The courtroom went quiet. Gerald stared at Ruth like betrayal had just moved in next door. Ruth did not look away. That tiny woman was a lighthouse in orthopedic shoes. Then Margaret asked if I wanted to speak. I had not planned to at first. The paperwork was enough. Margaret had told me that, but while sitting there, listening to my life discussed in legal phrases, I felt something rise in me. Not rage. Not revenge. Ownership. For once, I wanted my own voice in the room. I stood. My hands were cold, but they did not shake. Your Honor, I said. I am not here because I want revenge. I heard Gerald shift in his chair. I am here because for most of my life, I did not know who I was. I did not know my real name. I did not know my mother's face. I did not know my father had been looking for me. I was told I had been unwanted, and I believed it because I was a child. I took a breath. Mr. Talbot says he gave me everything. But everything looked like a storage closet with no window, a mattress from the curb. No identification, no doctor visits, no right to ask questions. I cooked, cleaned, worked, and was told every day to be grateful. He slapped me at his birthday party because I gave him a wallet I saved 3 months to buy. But that was not the real reason. I looked at the judge. Not Gerald. He hit me because I refused to sign another paper giving him control over my life and whatever money was connected to me. I was not his daughter. I was a line item. No one spoke. I sat down. Richard's hands were folded on the table, his knuckles white. Margaret gave me one small nod. That was all I needed. Then the unexpected happened. Donna stood. Gerald grabbed her wrist. Sit down. She pulled away. It was the first time I had ever seen Donna choose anything against him. Your Honor, she said, voice shaking. I need to tell the truth. Gerald's face turned red. Donna looked at the judge. I wrote the check. The $5,000. Gerald told me it was to help move the adoption faster. I knew it was wrong. I knew more than I admitted. I stayed quiet for 18 years. Megan made a sound behind her. Small and shocked. Donna kept going. I watched him hit her. I watched him work her like a servant. I told myself it was not my place to challenge him. But that was a lie. I was afraid. And I let that child suffer because of it. Gerald exploded. She's lying. She's confused. Judge Dwyer's voice cut through him. Mr. Talbot. Sit down. One more outburst and I will hold you in contempt. He sat. And there it was. The man who had ruled my life with fear was now being told to be quiet by a woman with a gavel. I will admit, that part felt nice. Judge Dwyer reviewed the documents for several minutes. The whole room waited. When she spoke, her voice was steady. The evidence before this court is unambiguous. The consent to relinquish parental rights was fraudulent. Richard Whitford did not knowingly or voluntarily surrender his parental rights. The adoption that followed was built on forged consent and was further tainted by financial misconduct. Gerald stared forward. The adoption of Hilary Catherine Whitford, styled as Allison Grace Talbot, is hereby declared void from its beginning. Her legal name is restored to Hilary Catherine Whitford. Effective immediately. The gavel came down. The sound was simple, wood against wood. But to me, it sounded like a locked door opening. The judge ordered Gerald and Donna to repay the adoption assistance funds to the Commonwealth of Virginia. She also referred the matter for criminal investigation, including forgery, fraud, and child neglect. Donna cried into her tissue. Gerald sat frozen. Megan looked like someone had unplugged her from reality, and I sat there breathing in a courtroom that no longer belonged to his version of the story. When we stepped into the hallway, Megan hurried after me. I didn't know, she said. Her makeup was smeared. She looked smaller than she ever had in that upstairs bedroom. I didn't know about the money. I thought Dad paid for everything from work. I didn't know it was... She could not finish. Your money. My money. Money meant for the child sleeping beside the water heater. I looked at her for a long moment. Part of me wanted to hurt her with the truth. But the truth was already doing fine without my help. I hope you figure out who you are without his money, I said. But that is your journey. Not mine. Then I walked away. Outside. Gerald stood near the courthouse steps. Allison, he called. I stopped and turned. The old name hit the air and fell dead between us. My name is Hillary, I said. His mouth tightened. After everything I did for you. This is how you repay me? And there it was. Even then, even after the judge. The evidence. The forged signature. The money. The closet. The slap. Gerald still thought love was a debt I had failed to pay. You did not do anything for me, I said. You did everything to me. And now it is over. I walked down the steps to Richard's SUV. He opened the door but did not touch me, did not rush me, did not say a word. I got in. Through the tinted window, I saw Gerald standing alone on the courthouse steps. Suit jacket open, face empty with disbelief. For the first time, he looked small, and for the first time, I did not. I stepped into the SUV that day with my legal name restored. But I did not step into a brand new life all at once. That is something people do not always understand. A judge can bang a gavel and change the paperwork in 1 second. Your body does not catch up that fast. Your mind still checks for danger. Your heart still waits for the next insult. Your hands still shake when someone raises their voice in a restaurant, even if they are only complaining about soup. 6 months later, I live in Richmond, not in Richard's old house with the red front door. Even though he offered it more than once. That house mattered to him. It mattered to my mother. Maybe someday it will matter to me in a way that feels simple. But after spending most of my life in a space someone else controlled, I needed a place that was mine because I chose it. So I rented a small studio apartment off Grace Street. It is not fancy. The kitchen is narrow. The bathroom fan sounds like it is thinking about retirement. And one cabinet door hangs, slightly crooked, no matter how many times I push it back into place. But it has tall windows. Big ones. Morning light pours through them like it has an appointment with me. The first week I lived there, I kept opening and closing the curtains just because I could. That may sound small to someone who has always had a bedroom with a window. But when you have spent years waking up beside a water heater, sunlight feels personal. I bought a bed new. Not expensive. Not designer. Just new. Mine. No curb. No stains. No story attached to it except the one I was starting. I also bought blue sheets because Megan always said blue made a room look cheap. That alone made blue my favorite color for a while. Healing is not always noble. Sometimes it is buying sheets out of spite and sleeping wonderfully. I am studying for my GED now. I should have had it years ago. But life under Gerald's roof did not exactly come with encouragement and a guidance counselor. Richard offered tutors, classes, whatever I needed. At first, every offer made me stiffen. I kept waiting for the bill that was not about money, but Richard did not ask for anything back. He did not say, "After all I've done for you." He did not remind me that he was paying. He did not make help feel like a leash. That took getting used to. I also enrolled in the culinary program at Reynolds Community College. Which is funny when you think about it. Gerald made me cook for years. And now I am choosing to cook. Same pans. Same knives. Same smell of garlic hitting hot oil. But completely different meaning. That is one lesson I wish somebody had told me earlier. A skill you learned while surviving does not belong to the people who hurt you. It belongs to you. You can take it back. You can use it for yourself. You can turn it into something honest. The first time I made a proper sauce in class, my instructor tasted it and said, "Good balance." I nearly cried into the saucepan. Not because sauce is emotional. Although some chefs would argue, I nearly cried because nobody had called my work good without using it against me later. Richard and I have dinner every Sunday at the bungalow with the red door. He still owns it. He never sold it after Catherine died. He told me he could not bring himself to sign the papers. For years, he kept the porch repaired, the grass cut, the utilities on, and the little bedroom upstairs untouched. Not like a shrine. Exactly. More like a promise he did not know if he would ever get to keep. The first time I walked inside, I expected to feel something dramatic. Maybe grief. Maybe belonging. Maybe the floor would creak and some lost piece of me would suddenly know where to land. Instead, I noticed the smell of old wood polish, coffee, and lemon dish soap. I noticed the red front door stuck a little when Richard opened it. I noticed a framed photo of Catherine on the mantel, laughing with her head turned slightly to the left. My mouth does that too. Richard is not a great cook. I say that with love, but also with evidence. His salmon comes out dry enough to file paperwork with, and his garlic bread has two settings, pale or legally burned. But he cooks anyway. He sets the table for two. He asks about my week. Then he listens to the answer. Listening is still strange to me. Gerald listened the way a trap listens. He waited for weakness, contradiction, or a reason to call me ungrateful. Richard listens like my words have somewhere safe to sit. We are not perfect. How could we be? You cannot lose 18 years and then fix it with Sunday dinner. Sometimes we sit across from each other and have no idea what to say. Sometimes he looks at me with so much sadness that I want to leave the room. Sometimes I get angry at him for not finding me sooner, even though the rational part of me knows he tried. Both things can be true. That is another lesson I am learning. Healing does not require you to make your feelings neat for other people. I go to therapy every Thursday. My therapist is Dr. Torres. Her office has a ficus plant in the corner, a beach couch, and a box of tissues that I pretend not to notice until I need one. She does not tell me how to feel. She asks questions and lets me hear my own answers. That sounds simple. It is not. When you have spent your life being told what happened, what it meant, what you owed, who you were, and how grateful you should be. Thinking for yourself can feel like learning to walk in new shoes. Some mornings, I still wake up at 5. My heart jumps before I remember where I am. For a few seconds, my mind starts listing chores. Start coffee, fold towels, check the dishwasher, sweep the patio. Then I see the windows. The sky is there. No one is calling my name from upstairs. No one is waiting to inspect the counter. I breathe until the old fear loosens its grip. As for the Talbots, their story did not end neatly either. Real life rarely ties a bow unless someone is selling you something. Gerald and Donna are awaiting trial on charges tied to forgery, fraud, and neglect. The house in Henrico County has a second mortgage now, because restitution is not paid with good intentions and church smiles. Gerald was asked to resign from the board at First Baptist. I heard he did not go quietly, which must have shocked absolutely no one. Donna cooperated with investigators. Margaret says that may reduce what happens to her. I have complicated feelings about that. Donna was afraid of Gerald. Yes, I believe that. But fear does not wash a person clean when a child is suffering in the next room. Megan moved in with an aunt in Fredericksburg and got a job in retail. Her first job. I do not say that to mock her. Well, maybe a little. I am human, but mostly, I hope work teaches her what comfort hid from her. I hope she learns who she is when nobody is paying her way or handing her someone else's share of life. She wrote me once. Not a long letter. Just a message saying she was sorry, and that she did not understand how bad it was. I did not answer right away. The old me would have rushed to make her feel better. The old me would have said, "It's okay," even when it was not okay. Because keeping other people comfortable was my full-time job before I ever got paid by Rosie's. This time, I waited. Then I wrote back, "I hear you. I am not ready for a relationship. I hope you keep learning." That was all. Forgiveness, I have learned, does not mean reopening the door and handing someone the same key. Sometimes forgiveness means you stop letting their damage live rent-free in your chest. Sometimes, it means you wish them growth from a very healthy distance. And sometimes you are not ready for forgiveness at all. That is allowed too. I want to be clear about something. This was never about revenge. I know it has the shape of revenge from the outside. The courtroom. The evidence. The money. Gerald standing on those courthouse steps looking like someone finally handed him the bill for his own behavior. But revenge would mean I wanted him to suffer just because I suffered. I do not. I want accountability. Those are not the same thing. Revenge says, "I hurt, so you should hurt." Accountability says, "The truth is coming into the room, and you do not get to turn off the lights anymore." That is what happened to Gerald. The lights came on. If you are listening to this and you are in a family where love always comes with a price tag, where help is used as a leash, where gratitude means silence, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not selfish for wanting respect. You are not ungrateful for naming the truth. You are not difficult because you finally stopped making yourself small enough to fit inside someone else's comfort. Family is not just paperwork. It is not a last name. It is not a house, a holiday photo, Or a story people tell at church to make themselves look kind. Family is how people treat you when nobody important is watching. Family is the person who says, "Of course," when you ask for proof instead of demanding blind trust. Family is the person who gives you room to choose. Family is the person who holds the door open and does not ask you to thank them for basic decency. Last Sunday, Richard and I sat on the porch of the bungalow with the red door. He had coffee. I had a textbook open on my lap. The weather was mild. The kind of Virginia afternoon that makes people forgive humidity for a few months. We did not talk much. For once, silence did not feel like punishment. It felt like peace. After a while, Richard looked over and said, "I'm glad you're here." I looked at the street, the porch rail, the red door, the open sky above us. Then I said, "Me too. My name is Hillary Catherine Whitford. For the first time in my life, I know exactly who I am." One of the deepest lessons in this story is that love should never require you to disappear. A real family does not use guilt, money, age, or obligation to keep someone silent. Respect is not something children, spouses, parents, or elders should have to beg for. It is the foundation of any healthy home. For older viewers, this story is also a reminder that it is never too late to protect your dignity. Some people spend years being told they are too sensitive, ungrateful, or difficult simply because they finally speak the truth. But setting boundaries is not cruelty. Saying no is not betrayal. Walking away from mistreatment is not selfish. The story also teaches that accountability is different from revenge. Revenge tries to hurt people back. Accountability brings the truth into the open and allows justice to do its work. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is gather facts, stay calm, ask for help, and refuse to keep protecting those who harmed them. No matter your age, your past does not have to own your future. You still deserve peace, respect, safety, and a life where your name, your voice, and your worth are no longer controlled by someone else.